All right, man, peace. So Steph Curry and Kyrie Irving had one of the great showdowns of the NBA regular season thus far. And it begs the question, will the Boston Celtics have what it takes to possibly overcome the talent deficit that they have with the Golden State Warriors should they meet up in the NBA Finals? And also, has Kyrie Irving closed the gap on Steph Curry? Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Speaking of the association, did we have a finals preview on Saturday night? The Warriors and Celtics faced off, and all eyes were on Steph Curry and Kyrie Irving, who both showed out. Steph led all scorers with 49 points in the Dubs win.
Let me say this very quickly. I mentioned this earlier in the season, I think even before the season started. Kyrie Irving has the best offhand I've ever seen on any NBA player. He can do things going right and then coming back with his left hand, going left and finishing with his left hand off either foot, shooting overhand, left-handed shots better than any player that I've ever seen, including Larry Bird, Kobe Bryant, some of the other players who like to do a lot of trick shots with their left hand. Kyrie Irving also has the best balance, driving the lane with players that are taller than him by 6 to 7 inches and finishing over them. The greatest touch in traffic. As I've already stated, he's the best layup maker that I've ever seen other than Michael Jordan. His touch is unbelievable. And some of the moves that he does in an NBA game, I've never seen an NBA player to do. I'm not talking about these little trick dudes on the asphalt. Before somebody comes in the comments, oh, you don't know nothing about skip to my hot sauce, go through the leg 500 times, and then he shoot it. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about real basketball.
While Kyrie held his own with 37. Max, I'll ask you this. Do you think Kyrie will ever catch Curry as an overall?
And now, do you see that tattoo on the back of Kyrie Irving's neck? I stated earlier that Kyrie Irving's father is a Buddhist. And as you can see on the back of Kyrie Irving's neck, he has that I believe it's called the 8 pathways of righteousness in Buddhism. So Kyrie is most likely a Buddhist himself. I think that the disparity between Steph and Kyrie is pretty much non-existent. I think that there's a discernible difference between Steph Curry's ability to shoot and Kyrie's ability to shoot. But I think that there's also that same gulf between Kyrie's handle and Steph's handle. Steph has a great handle, but Kyrie's handle is non-for-real. Kyrie's a great shooter, but Steph Curry's shooting is non-for-real. So we'll see what happens if they meet up in the finals. It will certainly be a matchup worth watching. Their matchups are by far the most enjoyable because I believe that Westbrook and John Wall, those guys to me, they play great, but they're not great players. And they just don't understand the game. They don't understand the flow of the game. Kyrie and Steph, mentally, they're above all those other players. Damian Lillard, he's very good as well, but he's too streaky. Kyrie and Steph, they can will themselves into great games.
Overall player.
Yes, the answer is yes. And I could easily just say, look, he's 25 and Curry's 29. So as Curry ages, and as smart as Curry's game is, it does rely on quicks, and all that stuff is going to age. He's not super big. He's strong for his size, but he's small.
That's true. But Kyrie also has shown a little physical fragility. He's had health issues in the past. Even more than Steph, to be quite honest with you. Steph has had issues with his ankles, but he really has not had problems anywhere else. Of course, as we know, he had the knee sprain during the 2016 playoffs that probably cost him the championship. But Kyrie also had the knee issue, the knee injury during the 2015 finals. So it will be interesting to see as Kyrie moves up towards his late 20s and Steph moves towards his early 30s, if that discernible but not too distant gap between them can close.
But I'm not just going to make the argument that Kyrie's younger. I'm going to make the argument, Stephen A. Smith, that Kyrie is coming for Steph regardless. At this moment, Steph is still better than Kyrie. And really what it comes down to, they both have great handles. Kyrie maybe a little bit better. They both finish really well in the paint. Kyrie finishes better. They both bomb it from long range. This game a couple days ago, Kyrie was pulling up from well behind the arc. And
yes, Kyrie's a very underrated shooter. extremely underrated long-range shooter. People forget he has won a three-point shooting contest. I can't remember what year it was, but he has won one. I think it was 2011 or 2012. He won the three-point shooting contest.
And stroking it. But Steph Curry is in a class by himself. He has an advantage there. When you shake it all out, Steph is the better player. He's still the better player. But here it is. We have seen them in crunch time in the finals. In the finals, Kyrie is a more clutch player.
I agree with that. As a matter of fact, I think that Kyrie is one of the great clutch players and great crunch time players that I've seen in well over 20 years of watching basketball. Kyrie with a basketball in his hands in clutch moments, down one, down two, is as lethal as any player probably in the last 25 plus years. He's that lethal in the clutch time, in the crunch time situations, the clutch moments. Steph is also a very good clutch player, but the struggles that he had against Cleveland in 2015 and 2016 have taken a lot away from his esteem in regards to his ability to convert in crunch time situations. And it's unfortunate because prior to 2015, when he had that bad game 2 and the early part of game 3 against Cleveland, he was viewed as being one of the most vicious and cutthroat clutch performers in the NBA. People forget in the 2015 playoffs, I believe it was game 4 against New Orleans. They were down big and came back and he hit a three-pointer, sent it into overtime. He was clutch all throughout those playoffs until he got to Cleveland and Dellavedova. For whatever reason, Dellavedova's physicality severely bothered him in the early parts of game 3. Game 2, he just shot terribly. Game 4, he played well, they won. Game 5, he played great, they won. And Game 6, he played well, they won. 2016 finals, he was hurt. So those two issues have taken a lot away from Steph Curry's esteem as a crunch time performer, unfortunately for him. But Kyrie has shown that he has ice water in his veins.
Than Steph Curry. People call him a finisher, right? But what we see is, in the moment of truth, you'd rather have Kyrie than Steph so far. And if you're saying it's competitive between the two, and one guy is better when you need him the most, and on top of that, he's 4 years younger, he's going to catch him. Kyrie's going to catch Steph.
Also understand that Max Kellerman has to spend most of the NBA season issuing a mea culpa whenever they talk about Kyrie.
Max, you have this habit of bringing up Steph Curry as if this dude is some choker. He just doesn't show up. He doesn't get it done.
Well, Steph has a lot of himself to blame for that. He played poorly in 2016. And even though he was hurt in the 2016 finals, in Game 3, I don't know what happened to him. Same thing happened to him in Game 3 of the 2016 finals as what happened to James Harden last year in that last game against the Spurs. And as I've stated, whenever Max Kellerman brings up Kyrie Irving, he's embarrassed because he did not think that Kyrie was going to be as good as he's been this season. So he's extremely deferential to Kyrie in any conversations that pertain to him. It's pretty much going to be the same deferential tone that he's going to have for Tom Brady next year, should Brady play well.
I just want to throw some numbers by you because I know you appreciate numbers, sir, Mr. Analytic Dude. Do you realize that Steph Curry is averaging 26 points a game in the postseason throughout his career? 26 points on 45% shooting and 41% from three-point range. Now, obviously, those are numbers that dwindle just a touch from what he does during the regular season because he's a career 43% shooter from three-point range. Kyrie's been shooting 40% over the last 2 seasons. His three-point shot has improved. He's actually identical. He's at 40.1% now, just like he was last year. All right? And Kyrie's a bad boy. Please don't get me wrong. The brother's all world. I got a lot of love for his game. Steph Curry is the greatest shooter I have ever seen in my life.
I would agree with that in regards to greatest pure shooter overall, meaning spot up, off the dribble, mid-range, long range, well beyond the three-point line. I would probably put him as the best. Now, we're talking about the great clutch shooters. No, he would not be that. But overall shooting in all of its manifestations, yes, I would have to say that Steph is certainly the greatest shooter that I've ever seen.
I have never, in all my years of watching basketball, my apologies to Reggie Miller, the great Reggie Miller, my apologies to Ray Allen, my apologies to the Ricky Pierces of the world, the Dale Ellisons of the world, the Steve Kerrs of the world, the John Paxsons of the world.
John Paxson was one of the great mid-range jump shooters off of the kick-out in NBA history. Jordan or Pippen would kick out to Paxson for one of them 18-foot mid-range jumpers, automatic, especially around 91, 92. Whew.
The downtown Freddie Browns of the world, dating back to the 70s.
The Del Currys of the world.
The Del Currys of the world.
The Klay
Thompsons of the world.
Don't forget Craig Hodges.
Steph Curry is the greatest shooter I have ever seen in my life, because it doesn't matter where he is on the floor. It doesn't matter whether he's spotting up, coming off of screens, pulling up off the dribble. It doesn't matter. The brother throws it up, and it's usually going in.
But what about Max's argument, though, that Kyrie's a better closer?
Kyrie is a sensational player and a sensational closer. But Steph Curry is so phenomenal, it doesn't get to a point where you have to close most of the time.
Well, that's more of a team issue. That's a team issue right now. Kyrie is still building his understanding on how to assist in creating the atmosphere of a team that's anywhere near as functional as the Golden State Warriors. The good news for him is that he has the right coach. So everything should proceed as planned as long as he stays healthy. They just need another big name player to come there. Anthony Davis will be perfect, but I'm not sure what they'd have to give up to get him.
Because of the stuff that this dude spends the vast majority of 48 minutes demoralizing you. Because how do you defend a dude that literally is a threat from the moment he walks past half court? Yeah.
That's what makes Curry seem quicker than he actually is. Curry has good quickness. He's not as quick as they make him out to be. He's not quick like a Kyrie. But because of how proficient he is at long-range shooting, it freezes his defender. And then Curry has a great handle. So by the time Curry throws his pump fakes, his head fakes, and then a crossover, he can pretty much blow by anybody in the NBA as long as his jump shot is falling. Now, when his jump shot is not falling, sometimes he may have an issue penetrating to the basket. But Kyrie can penetrate on anybody because his handle is just unbelievable.
Do you understand that Steph Curry can say, this table right here could be half court? And the second this man touches the ball at half court, you're like this. Oh, no. Oh, no. I don't know what because he might just pull up from there. And what I'm saying is, in today's NBA game, Kyrie is the dude, Max, if we talking Rutgers Park, if we talking West 4th Street, if we talking
Kyrie all day.
I mean, it's Kyrie all day. Every day he'll dance on you. The handle's nasty. He's all world. We get all of that. But Steph Curry is that dude in today's game where you have to shoot. I mean, shooting is just everything. This dude is the greatest to ever do it. That's my issue.
Couple things.
Well, Kyrie, by the end of his career, he may be considered the greatest little man to ever do it. Because when I look at Kyrie, I look at him as Isaiah Thomas 2.0. That's Isaiah Thomas 2.0 to me. And if you ever watch any NBA TV, when Isaiah Thomas is in studio and they cover any Boston highlights, he gets hyped up because he loves Kyrie's game, because he clearly sees a lot of himself in Kyrie.
That's why I can't go with Kyrie.
Steph changed the game. There's no two ways about it. He's the greatest shooter of all time. Mobile artillery unit. Steve Nash 2.0, right? Like, he's just different.
That's not a bad comparison, even though he's not as good a passer as Steve was.
But those playoff numbers you mentioned, a lot of those are early round matchups against teams that have no chance against that Golden State juggernaut.
Well, the man did average over 25 in the finals.
And I was the one arguing when I was on Sports Nation. Steph is taking over from LeBron right now. Mm-hmm. In any other era, that wouldn't be true. But the way the game is played today, I said at the time, this is Steph's world.
It was. And that is why the injuries that Curry suffered early on in the 2016 playoffs are so damaging to his legacy. I've mentioned this before. And it's just funny, just going back to Max Kellerman mentioning Steve Nash, Curry is on record as stating that he views there to be a lineal descent from Isaiah Thomas through Steve Nash to him. Steve Nash was a major inspiration for Steph Curry. And it's understandable because Steve Nash was a guy who was smaller, was not viewed as someone who would be great in the NBA. I remember when he was in college. There was a time that when he came into the NBA, he was on the same team with Kevin Johnson and Jason Kidd. So they had 3 Hall of Fame point guards on one team. Now, Kevin Johnson, I don't believe is in the Hall of Fame yet, but he probably will make it eventually. But Steph Curry's on record as stating that Steve Nash was a huge inspiration for him. And just getting back to Max Kellerman's point, in 2016, had Steph Curry had a postseason like the regular season that he had, there will be people arguing that he's a top 10 all-time great player. ESPN had already put him above Isaiah Thomas as in regards to all-time great point guards. They had him above Isaiah Thomas during the 2015-2016 season. And all that went crashing down because of his performance in the 2016 playoffs and how they choked away their NBA championship. So, it is what it is.
LeBron shouldn't get the lead in Space Jam. Steph should. Steph's still it's his story now. And I was proven wrong when it mattered most.
And I think that Steph would have made a better choice in Space Jam. I think that he's more kid friendly. I think that his aura, his energy is a little bit more kid friendly than LeBron. Even though LeBron is the best player in today's game. And we all know that LeBron has a stand level of infatuation with Michael Jordan.
Averaging those numbers in the finals, Stephen A., we see he's not the same guy. And I take no pleasure in it. I'm rooting for Steph. I love Steph. One of my favorite players to watch.
Let's give him credit for almost averaging a triple-double in last year's finals and being extremely proficient while doing it.
To watch, ever. But he hasn't been as good as his normal self when you needed him most. Now, Kyrie has elevated in the finals. And if you're talking about the highest leverage moments, and it's close in other situations. And one more thing.
Go ahead.
Steph plays defense more consistently than Kyrie.
Okay.
Steph is an underrated...
Be careful, you're making my argument for
Steph
me.
is an underrated team defender.
Okay.
However, in high leverage moments, when you need them both to turn on the defense, Kyrie's a better defender.
I agree with that. Kyrie can lock down when he needs to. And this season has shown that he can be a great defender when it's called on him to be a great defender. Once again, he's shown himself to be a quote-unquote prophet in desiring to be traded away from Cleveland. Because I think that their style of play on both offense and defense were holding him down. A lot of defense and defensive proficiency is knowing where you should be. Some of these teams, they have such a haphazard approach to defense that because of that, the players don't know where they should be, and it causes them to play worse defense than they're actually capable of playing.
Like, Kyrie is capable of playing defense at a higher level than Steph, and he does that when you need him to do it the most.
Well, let me
That was good defense by Steph. That's just an all-world move by Kyrie there.
exercise a dissuasive measure for you. You need to refrain from using the word however the way that you use it, because when you do it, you sound like me. And I know you don't want to do that. So you might just want to think about that. When you say however, you say it like me. You might want to back up from there. You might not want to sound like me. There you go, rub it up on you. But here's the deal. Steph Curry averaged 26.8 in the finals last year and 9 assists. I mean, it's not like the dude...
And about 8 rebounds.
Dude just
Stop right there.
disappears.
Stop right there.
Go ahead.
Did they have a chance in the finals, the Cavs?
No, they didn't.
Oh,
No.
But the finals before did? Yeah.
Wait a minute. That's when he was hurt. Remember that. He was hobbled a little bit. All right. So we got to take that into consideration. Not to mention this fact, Max, that I keep bringing up to you. You pointed out initially what he was departing from, which means we haven't really seen Kyrie yet in that kind of situation, similar to what he was in. See, in Cleveland, you got LeBron. And obviously, you close, but those 46 to 47 minutes leading up to closing, you got LBJ. We understand that.
Yeah, but Steve, let's be for real. Do we really expect Kyrie to not perform well in clutch moments? I don't think that any of us expect that. And beyond that, it wasn't like Kyrie was just sitting on the bench until about the 2-minute mark left in the game, and then he comes in fresh to score down the stretch of a close game and let LeBron just chill out. Kyrie was dominant throughout the game as well. He did what he was called on to do.
This year, you're not going to have that. So to me, those are the kind of things. The jury is still out. All I'm saying is this: Kyrie's all world. All world. He's big time. But in today's game, the way the rules have changed, you are talking about the greatest sniper in the history of basketball.
That's why.
I agree with that. And this era is tailor-made for Steph. There's no doubt about that. He's the most potent player in the NBA today for this style of play.
why right now
I can't pick somebody over that.
That's why right now Steph is better than Kyrie. Let me be very clear. Even with the argument that Kyrie in high leverage moments is better and all that stuff, Steph right now is better than him. Kyrie, in addition to all that, because it's competitive,
Right.
we just saw it, is 4 years
I'll
younger.
make a very
He's coming.
I'll make a very profound statement, and I'll ask.
And let me say this also about Steph. Probably the most underrated thing about him is his conditioning. He just runs guys ragged. And then what he does off the ball, setting picks, constant movement, that keeps the defense off balance. It opens up lanes for centers like Zaza Pachulia to dive to the basket. You know, what he brings to offense is invaluable, incalculable. Not just from his long-range shooting, but what he does off the ball.
I'll ask you whether or not you agree with this or not. Obviously, you can't teach.
And then he makes it look easy, scoring on great defenders. Boston has great perimeter defenders, and Steph makes it look easy when he scores.
You can't teach 7 feet. You can't teach 300 pounds, 350 pounds. Why am I going there? Because Shaq, to me, is the most dominant force of our life, of the modern era. Obviously,
Post-Jordan,
I'm
yeah.
just talking about post-Will Chamberlain, all of that stuff. In today's game, who would you pick? Because of the rule changes, because of the way basketball is constructed.
I agree. If Shaq was playing in the NBA today, he would not be as dominant because he would be expected to come out and guard a stretch 5. But that also takes away from the effectiveness and how effectual all of these triple doubles are, because it's much easier for a guard to get 10 rebounds because they're not fighting with power forwards and centers to get rebounds anymore. Like, you couldn't average a triple double back in the late 80s, early 90s, going down in the lane trying to fight Dennis Rodman for rebounds. If you were on his team, Dennis Rodman would tell you, get the fuck out of here. I'm getting my rebounds. I want to lead the league in rebounding. Russell Westbrook wouldn't be able to do that back then. And you also wouldn't be able to drive the lane back then because your 4-man and your 5-man were not as good as shooters. So that means that they were camped out in the paint, which means that the guys defending them were camped out in the paint. Much harder to drive.
Constructed. You'd actually go with a Steph Curry before you went with a dominant guy like Shaq, because that's how much of an elite shooter he is. And the reason why I consider
I'm not saying that about Shaq.
Let me say this. Well, again, because Shaq ultimately has to go through the free throw line. And I've got to think about it along those lines. This is what I'm saying. Steph Curry shoots 90% from the free throw line. And we got to remember that too. So when I bring up, say,
yeah, Shaq will be dominant in any era, but he would not be as dominant in this era as he was in the late 90s, early 2000s. You know, the game was so physical back then, it was really built for him.
say, for example, a Kevin Durant. And we talk about the value of Kevin Durant as opposed to Curry or whatever. The reason why that's even more of a debatable item is because Kevin Durant can shoot. Kevin Durant's a scoring machine.
But you act like Kyrie can't shoot.
No.
Kyrie is an elite shooter.
No.
Yes, he is.
What I'm saying, I know he can shoot, don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying to you is those things are debatable to the point the game has changed so much that we've moved the big man out of it in terms of what we would value most.
No doubt.
Now, so if we know that, and it's because of the shooting and because of the softening of the rules, why would you not go with the greatest sniper in the history of the game?
If the guy we're comparing him to couldn't shoot, but Kyrie can shoot, and he can shoot from way behind the arc, then I would see your point. If we saw Steph elevate his normal level or even maintain it when you needed him the most, then I can't make the argument.
Here's my argument.
That's not the case.
Here's my argument again.
Kellerman definitely makes a very potent argument, but I have to agree with Steve right now. But they're pretty much arguing against an opponent that doesn't exist, because Kellerman is already on record as saying that he would take Curry over Kyrie. So basically, all Max Kellerman is saying is that I have to wait for Steph to get old for Kyrie to take his place. The real argument is Kyrie at his peak and Steph at his peak, who would you take? I would understand that being kind of difficult because you would have to kind of prorate Kyrie 3 years from now. But I don't think that Kyrie's going to get much better physically. I think that he's going to grow, that if he's going to grow, it's going to be mentally. And they don't call on him to play the same way as Steph. So it's a difficult comparison. They both bring great things to the table, and their matchups are always very exciting. It's just that it's just good this year. This is really the first season that both players have been fully healthy and fully self-aware of what they can do on a basketball court. In previous seasons, Kyrie was stuck in Cleveland or Steph was injured. So
Against you, I would take Kevin Durant against Steph Curry as a better debate than Kyrie against Steph Curry.
But KD's already better.
No, what I'm saying is
That's debatable. It's debatable if KD is better than Steph Curry. I would personally take KD, but you could debate that and certainly win if you had a good enough argument for Steph Curry being better, quote unquote, than KD. At the end of the day, Steph Curry was a 2-time MVP and a 1-time champion, and should have been a 2-time champion before KD ever got there. And as far as the mental game, KD is nowhere near on the level of Steph Curry. KD has too many mental breakdowns, especially in pressurized situations, and you cannot trust him on the free throw line in pressurized situations like you can Steph.
I'm talking about he's 6'11" and can shoot.
Yeah.
I'm going with the best shooter, but I'm looking at KD and I'm like, he's 6'11" and damn nigga shoot.
That game, and it was replayed the next day. I saw that game twice. That game shows you from Saturday. Kyrie is coming for Steph. That was nip and tuck all the way.
I think in Kyrie's mind, he's already better than Steph. In Kyrie's mind, he's trying to figure out how he can make his team come for Steph's team.
Kyrie was matching him step for step. He's coming.
Before we go to break, yes or no, would you want to see that matchup in the finals?
That's the matchup I would prefer to see. Okay. I would rather see Boston in the finals than the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Someone's getting waxed by the Warriors. I'd rather see a new team get waxed.
Right?
I would absolutely rather see the Celtics in the finals against the Warriors. I don't think that any other team out of the East can give them even the tough go of it. Maybe Toronto could win a game. Maybe if they're lucky, 2 games. I could see Boston taking it to 7. I really could. Especially if they can get another great player to pair alongside with Kyrie. If they could get an Anthony Davis, and I'd have to move any of their main pieces, if they can involve a third or fourth team in a trade, I could see them beating Golden State. I could see them beating Golden State if they could bring in Anthony Davis and maintain their current roster. But I just don't think that they're going to be able to do that. But anyway, peace.